Chapter 2 Accusations. "We caught him trying to leave, Jack!" Michael's rage stirred Ryan back to reality, and he had to blink a few times, the light way too bright, even in the dimly lit warehouse. The pain in his shoulder was more present now, and the rest of his body felt cold and stiff. He was unsure of how long he'd been unconscious, but someone had added more gauze to his wound and covered him with a heavy blanket. Something stung his right arm, and he slowly came to the realization that someone had hung an IV drip and there was an oxygen bottle next to him. He must have gone into shock after he passed out. Ryan noted the bag was a saline drip, probably to get his fluid level back up. It was about 1/3 empty, so from what he could remember of their first aid training, he'd been out for at least 3 hours. "You can't just ignore it was his fucking bullet in Jeff's leg!" Michael exclaimed, and Ryan could hear him clearly, even from the other side of the warehouse. "Wait, what?" He tried to sit up way too fast, and nearly knocked over the IV stand as his head spun and black dots danced in his vision. Jack was at his side immediately, trying to make him lie back down, but Ryan was sitting upright now and fighting hard to regain his senses. "What was that about who shot Jeff?" Ryan asked, his eyes narrowing with intent. Michael was there too now, standing by his bedside. His face was flushed, his dark eyes intense behind his glasses. Jeremy was gone. "Where's Jeremy?" Michael was still fuming. It was Lil Jay's bullet. The cops didn't have any snipers as far as anyone saw. When we got here, he was about to leave. Said he was worried and going to find Jeff, but he was more than happy to leave you here unconscious. Ryan couldn't believe what he was hearing. Jack piped up. "Look, it may have been an accident. He might have panicked, or it might have been a misfire, or a ricochet, or something. We can't just go accusing people of treason." Jack was physically the largest member of the fake AH crew, but his arguments seemed to shrink in comparison to Michael's intensity. Despite Michael's size, he was originally Jeff's muscle, and rightfully so. He could intimidate guys twice his size and had no reservations about violence. Since Ryan had joined the crew, though, the combination of his imposing figure and psychotic-like tendencies had upset that particular dynamic, and, in honesty, Ryan had become the only man that Michael Mogar Jones truly feared. "Where is Jeremy?" Ryan repeated louder. The words came out a little more forcefully than he would have liked. "He's out in the back shed," Michael said, shaking his head. "Restrained. Jeff's orders." What kind of hell had he woken up to? Ryan ran a hand through his shaggy, dirty blonde hair and whistled out a breath. "Has anyone talked to him yet?" Jack and Michael shook their heads in unison. "Jeff wanted you to handle the interrogations once we got back here, but we found you like this." Jack motioned to Ryan's shoulder, "and we figured it was best to wait till Jeff got back." Of course, it was always him. He showed no outward emotion, but something inside him twisted at the thought of interrogating Jeremy. Instead, he nodded. "All right. Let me talk to him." "Are you sure that's a good idea, Ryan?" Jack looked genuinely concerned for him. "You were in shock when we found you. You'd lost a lot of blood. You were lucky you managed to stop the bleeding before we got here." Ryan straightened up. "Ah, that was all Jeremy. I blacked out just after we got here. He was fixing me up when I passed out." "Yeah? Well, we caught him packing up to leave. It mustn't have been long after you blacked out. Jack got you on the IV and oxygen. Otherwise, you might have died," Michael explained. Jack wouldn't look him in the eye, but gave a sad smile and nodded. "You were in a bad way." Ryan shook his head. "It's Jeremy. He's one of us. Surely there's a logical explanation." Michael was getting worked up again. Ryan could see it in his face. "Ryan, man, he was gonna leave you for dead before. I mean, he's a fucking traitor. None of us want to believe it, but that's what happened." "Look." Ryan started, furrowing his brows, his face paint making it look even more menacing. He's restrained, right? I'm just going to talk to him, get an idea of what's going on. Jack had refused to let Ryan get up until he was sure he wasn't going to pass out or throw up, for which he was actually thankful, but didn't make an effort to show it. His shoulder ached painfully, and while he could move it weakly, his left arm was still mostly numb. It was too painful for Ryan to lift his arm to put on his jacket, and his shirt was torn and soaked through with blood, so he had draped a rough woolen blanket over his shoulders, open enough to reveal his scant chest hair matted with dried blood down his left side. Jack had offered him morphine for the pain, but he had refused, taking aspirin instead, with the slightly bitter explanation, I like how my brain works as it is, and I really need it on board right now. He had learned that Gavin had stayed with Jeff, and he'd bring him around once Jeff was stable. Jeff had taken care of Gavin so many times in the past, it was about time the lad had returned the favor. It was almost dawn before Ryan made his way out to the shed at the rear of the warehouse. The shed was tiny and made of steel with a concrete floor and a single furnace fireplace in the middle of an otherwise bare room. It was probably once a break room for workers in the winter. Now it was cold, bare, and drafty. Jeremy was sitting on the floor facing the back wall, his hands tied behind him to the furnace, his back resting on the chimney, and his legs outstretched in front of him. He'd been sleeping, but stirred when Ryan entered the room, door creaking closed behind him. Ryan? His face brightened to see him, and then immediately fell when the realization hit him that this was Jeff's Inquisitor. Was kinda hoping it wouldn't be you. Hey, Jeremy, don't worry. I'm just here to talk. He walked around and sat down on the floor opposite Jeremy. The guys say it was your bullet in Jeff's leg. Ryan still hadn't removed his face paint, which had become smudged during the night, making him look more than a little off-putting. I didn't shoot Jeff, Jeremy said calmly. That was all he needed to hear. Ryan took a deep breath. All right, I believe you. Jeremy looked up, directly into his two blue eyes, searching to see if he was lying, if this was a trick of the interrogation, but there was no malice in his face. If you had wanted us dead, frankly, we'd be dead by now. You've had more than enough chances to kill me and make it look like an accident. So I need you to level with me here, Jeremy. What is going on? Jeremy's eyes searched the floor. Ryan knew the look on his face well. He'd seen it many times before. It said he knew something. Something big's going down. I'm not sure what it is yet, and I don't know how much I can say. But I think I'm being set up. The fake AH crew has a lot of enemies, Ryan said matter-of-factly. Any ideas on where to start? Jeremy shook his head, but this time Ryan could tell he was lying. Damn it, Jeremy. You gotta give me something to go on here. Jeff's not going to be a reasonable man when he turns up. Jeremy looked up mournfully. I don't know what I can tell you. Not yet, anyway. There's something I have to do on my own first. Then I can tell you everything. But for now, the less you know, the better. Ryan closed his eyes and pinched the bridge of his nose. He could feel a major headache coming on. After another deep breath, Ryan moved to untie Jeremy's hands. All right, I trust you, but you gotta get the fuck out of here before Jeff gets back. Stay in contact, at least with me. And for God's sake, if shit gets real, call for help. I'll let you know when Jeff's calmed down enough for you to come back. I don't want this to end in a shitstorm. Jeremy's big brown eyes turned up with a genuine look of gratitude. Thank you. I won't forget this. No shit. Now go. Ryan sat down on the hard concrete floor with his back against the far steel wall. The metal was cool on his skin, and the crisp, fresh air felt good. Through the open door he could see the sun was beginning to rise, and the birds were starting to stir. After a while, he could faintly hear a car pulling up to the main warehouse. He shut his eyes and enjoyed the calm while it lasted. Care to explain what the fuck is going on here, Ryan? Jeff almost growled in the doorway, his hand resting on the pistol at his hip. Michael, Gavin, and Jack were lingering behind him. Ryan's eyes snapped open, and he sprung awkwardly to his feet. Jeff, look. Before you do anything rash. Rash? Ryan? Like shooting someone in the fucking leg? Would you consider that rash? He had unholstered his pistol, and with both hands aimed it first at Ryan's still bare chest, then down towards his leg. Whoa! Jeff! Jeff looked furious. Ryan had never seen him like this, except once before, a long time ago. God damn it, Ryan, where's Jeremy? Ryan looked down. I let him go, Jeff. What? Why? Gavin squawked as Michael and Jack muscled past them to get inside the shed and stand either side of Ryan. You said you were going to talk to him, Jack added unhelpfully. I did talk to him, Ryan snapped. He said he's being set up, and he needs to take care of something on his own. Well, did he say where he was going? Michael asked. Ryan shook his head. I don't know. He said the less we knew, the better. Jeff looked furious. He pointed the gun back at Ryan's legs. Back inside, now, or I will shoot you. Jeez, Jeff, okay. Ryan looked around with a distinct feeling of unease at being surrounded, but he remained calm and allowed himself to be escorted back to the warehouse. What were you thinking, Ryan? Jeff was perched on a chair, his bad leg outstretched, while Jack paced behind him, as if to make up for Jeff's inability to. Michael and Gavin had been sent to search the nearby area for clues as to where Jeremy might have gone. I think something else is going on here, Ryan started before Jeff cut him off. Caleb found his fucking bullet in my fucking leg. I just don't think it was Jeremy. And if it was, I'm sure as hell sure he didn't mean to kill you. Or you'd be dead, he thought, keeping it to himself. Jeff was beginning to sound like Michael now, his face getting redder with every sentence he spat. He shot me in the fucking leg. It's the perfect way to make it look like an accident. Maybe that's exactly what it was, Jeff, an accident. Ryan was getting defensive, and it was making him flustered. Jeff shook his head stubbornly. Jeremy's a good shot. He doesn't panic. He doesn't fuck up like this. He's scared, Jeff. I don't know of what, but there's something else going on that we don't know about. Jeff raised an eyebrow, almost as though offended by the idea that he didn't know something might be happening under his own nose. Ryan continued. He saved my life, Jeff. Surely that's got to count for something. Or maybe it doesn't mean shit. Jeff paused. Or maybe it means you're in on it too. What could I possibly have to gain from betraying you? Ryan was on the defense again. Jack had wandered out of view, and Ryan took a step towards Jeff. There was a fleeting glimpse of fear in his eyes, but Jeff held his ground. I don't know, Ryan, but there's always something. Ryan noticed the subtlest of gestures from Jeff too late as Jack's bat slammed into the side of his head and the world exploded into pain and blackness.